What's up, guys? It's Dave, and today's exciting episode is with the wealth hacker. Yes, Jeff Rose, who many of you have probably heard about. He has been very successful through blogging, YouTube. I mean, his channel's got almost 300,000 subscribers. He's been absolutely inspirational and influential for me as far as learning how to do a lot of this stuff. And as you'll hear me say later in the show, he's one of the few channels that my wife enjoys watching at night, which is saying something because I get told to turn off a bunch of finance stuff because it's boring. So Jeff has been just a great person to learn from and to get to know and to just consume his content. And I'm absolutely honored to have him on my show today. We're going to talk through all kinds of financial advice as well as side hustles and mistakes in real estate and mistakes in normal investing and just pitfalls to avoid and strategies. And I mean, this episode has it all. So you should definitely check it out and listen all the way through. If you haven't done so already, subscribe. And I'd love for you to give us a review. I don't ever shout that out on here, but if you want to go give us a review on iTunes, please do so. We don't, it just helps the show get to more people and it'll help grow the community even faster. That being said, so I was going to say smash the like button like I do on YouTube, which doesn't make any sense. But I'm going to leave that in here because this is all about authenticity. So that's funny. Show notes are found at FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast. Now relax and enjoy the show.
You're listening to the Military Millionaire Podcast, a show about real estate investing for the working class. Stay tuned as we explore ways to help you improve your finances, build wealth through real estate, and become a person that is worth knowing.
Hey, what's up, guys? Today's episode is brought to you by Fiverr. And Fiverr, for those of you who are not familiar, is a website full of freelancers and virtual assistants who can help you with your business. For example, the intro for my podcast was recorded and edited and the music provided by a freelancer on Fiverr for less than $40. The logo on my website, freelancer, less than $40. I have done a lot of fancy infographics for under $5 a piece. I found a editor for my YouTube channel. Fiverr has basically any task you could ever want to outsource can be found at fiverr.com. That is fiverr.com. And if you go in the show notes, there is a link that will take you out there and take a look around, guys. It is a very, very good way to save yourself some time, which is huge. And they may be better at the task than you are, so you never know. Definitely check out Fiverr.com. They have saved me so much hassle, so much time, and helped me produce better content for you, my listeners. Now, without further ado, enjoy the episode. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Dave from Military to Millionaire, and I'm here with Jeff Rose, a gentleman who's really done the military to millionaire journey, who served in the Army for 9 years. He's a certified financial planner, a CFP. He runs the Wealth Hacker YouTube channel, and honestly, if you don't know who this guy is, well, you should. He's phenomenal. He's big in the FinCon community and one of the YouTube channels that I watch when I want to learn more about money as I go through this transformation. So, Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, awesome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so on the civilian side, feels weird saying that. So I went to school, finance major. I will say prior to me graduating, I was a college dropout and was going nowhere in life. Ended up joining the Army National Guard to get my butt in gear, and then ended up getting a finance degree. Stumbled upon a job becoming a financial advisor, stockbroker, just because there was no other job offers out there, and that led to a 16-year career as a financial planner. And during that journey, I was in the Army National Guard, as I mentioned. Was deployed back in 2004 to support Operation Iraqi Freedom, stationed in the Green Zone. I guess it doesn't exist anymore, but right, U.S. Embassy, Baghdad. Actually, it was the Ba'ath Party headquarters is where our FOB was, and Saddam's trial actually was held on our FOB, which was kind of cool and kind of freaky. But along that journey, I was growing my business, my financial planning business, and then started a blog, goodfinancialsense.com, CENTS. Make sure you got to play on that spelling. And purely as a marketing tool for the financial planning practice. And this was a time I had no idea what a blog was, like zero clue. I thought I meant MySpace. I thought about talking about whatever food I was eating for that day. But then when I discovered the potential, and this is going back into 2008 is whenever I registered the domain and actually launched the blog. So that was over 11 years ago now. And along that journey, I ended up not hooking up, that's probably a bad word, connecting with some other personal finance bloggers. Actually, I don't know if you had him on the show, but there's a guy by the name of Ryan Ganaw who served in the Air Force, and he actually was deployed the same time frame I was. So like I think he was, I don't know where he was, but he was stationed with the Air Force. I was, with the Army. And after we both got back, we connected, and he runs a personal finance blog, and we end up emailing, chatting, and he was like my first real life online to real life connection, especially like in the blogging space. And when he shared like how much he was making with his websites, I was blown away. So that began a journey of really wanting to understand, how do you make money from a website? And so that's where I am now. I actually sold the financial planning business earlier this year after 16 years of doing it, and just completely focused on the website, the YouTube channel, podcasts, just basically trying to grow the online business even more.
Yeah, it's crazy to think what some of these guys are making passively online. And honestly, you have almost I think the money probably goes to show, it's like the old rule, right? The more people you can add value to, the money will follow. And like blogging and YouTube, and I mean, that's a great way to reach way more people with a message than you might one-on-one. You might not go as deep, but I mean, your YouTube channel's got 300,000 subscribers, right? Something like that.
Yeah, almost. We're almost there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know tons of people who watch that. So it's really cool to be able to post a video and it stays evergreen, and just tons of people will be able to see that over a time period. So I think that's why it's so scalable.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So I know I was going to mention it, before we recorded, I just wanted to touch on, Jeff just posted a video the other day that 7 accounts wealthy people have. And in there, he talks about a personal equity account. And I just wanted to throw that out there to you guys to say that I still watch his channel and get a ton out of it. I had never thought about budgeting for my investing in myself, as opposed to just taking money out of my business account whenever I decide to do something, and being more intentional with it. So I wanted to thank you for that nugget.
Yeah, it's funny because even like when I remember the financial advisor that had hired me, he was a quote unquote $1 million producer, which is a pretty elusive title to reach in the financial planning industry. And I remember him telling me that he had hired, I think at that time, like his second business coach. And when he shared that with me, I'm like, what do you mean you hire a business? Like, what do you need like, what is a business coach? And he had played college basketball. So, he was very familiar with coaching, and he kind of explained, the whole concept. And even when he explained it to me, like, I didn't quite get it, like, I'm like, because especially when he shared like how much he'd spent, I mean, it was anywhere between like $5,000 to $10,000. And I'm just like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? And it wasn't until I ended up leaving that firm, starting my own business, where I just reached this almost like a plateau, like I was making a couple $100,000 a year, but I just I don't know, like I didn't feel like I had a purpose anymore. I was just going through the motions. And if I'm being honest, like I could have kept making that amount of money and not do a lot of work. And that just wasn't, I mean, I should have been satisfied, but it just felt like, man, there's like God's given me more talent, more skills to do, and I'm just not taking advantage of it. And that's why I ended up signing up for my first business coaching program. And I think at the time it was like $8,000 or $9,000 that I invested into it. But like, it was so hard. It was so hard for me to spend that amount of money. And then just through the whole process and just all these things revealed, like I just recognized that, and like a lot of people, they look at coaching, consulting, courses, conferences, they look at them almost as like a cost, like, oh, how much is that going to cost me? As opposed to as an actual investment that's going to pay off, returns and dividends over the years. And it's just a total mindset shift. So the idea is creating a personal equity fund, which is basically just a savings account that you give like a really fancy name, but you are just dedicating, committing that I'm going to put money into here, that I'm going to invest into myself some way, somehow. And that way you just already have, like, you're already ready for it. So that whenever that opportunity comes along, whether it's a conference or, a course, maybe you follow somebody, We're talking about Grant Cardone for the recording here. And, if you're a big fan of his, all of a sudden he has a private mastermind that he's getting ready to release, or a new course, or whatever that is, new coaching. And now you've got like $250 saved up in your personal equity fund. And like, he has this thing like, yeah, like I'm going to do that, like I want to invest in myself. So I'm going to take money out of my personal equity fund and allocate it towards that.
Yeah. Which is just brilliant. And it's huge because I've definitely overdone it a little bit on conferences before, which is probably a bad thing, but I mean, it pays dividends. And you're right. It's weird, the dynamic when it comes to coaching, where like at first you're just totally hesitant to pay somebody, this chunk of change or whatever to grow. And then all of a sudden you do it and you're like, oh, holy crap. Like I got all my money back out of that and then some.
It's funny because the business coaching program, not to plug them, I was in that program for 5 years. It was called the Strategic Coach. And so 3 years in, I had invested about $26,000, not including time away from the office, hotel stay, having to get up to Chicago. And I always had people asking me, the super analytical people, like, well, what was your return on your investment? And initially, like I couldn't quantify in the first year, because actually, if you looked at my revenue at the end of the first year, like it was flat. Like money, I didn't make more money. I mean, actually, I lost money because I spent, the $8,000 or $9,000 to join the program. Fast forward to 2 years later, so 3 years after I initially had signed up, my revenue went from $250,000 a year to $750,000 a year. And all because of just different principles that I was able to apply in my business, outsourcing, delegating, focusing on the money-making skills, all this stuff. I mean, I'm not talking like I invested $27,000 and made $500,000. I'm talking I invested 27 and then increased my recurring annual revenue to $500,000 a year every year going forward. And it's only gone up since then. I mean, I would love to try to plug that into a financial calculator to see the return. But I mean, it's pretty astronomical, when you see it. So when people are hesitant about coaching, now there are bad coaching programs. Like, I mean, I've seen instances where people invested money, they didn't get that return on the investment. So there has to some careful, just use your due diligence, but just make sure you talk to people first before you kind of just plunge in. On a $250 course, whatever, like that's not as a big a deal, but we're talking like thousands of dollars. And don't do what I did, because I basically got referred by somebody I met online. He didn't get a kickback or anything. That was a whole random story, but it worked out for me. So I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, that's funny. So true. All right. So we kind of joked about it before the show, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience with real estate investing.
So, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and that still is, it's actually over my left shoulder. I got like my top 10 books, and it is, there it is. And, I love that book. It changed my mindset early on in my career and my journey. Didn't really give me a blueprint on what to do, but it still at least got me thinking, man, I've got to try new things. And obviously anything you read, real estate is a way to accelerate your wealth building. And I know obviously you're a great case study, and there's countless others I've ran to who's just been very successful with it. So I'm going to become a real estate investor, so I'm working my financial planner job, and which was still taking like 30, sometimes 40 hours a week. Let's just say like 30 hours a week. And I wanted to start buying real estate. So I started looking at different properties, and found a HUD property that we made an offer on. I had no idea how actually I was going to rent it out, since you had to live in it, but I was going to figure that out after the fact. We didn't get that. And then we found it was me and my father-in-law. He was more of like the handyman guy. So if there anything that needed fixing, like he was going to do that. I was supposed to be the numbers guy, which I was, but not like, as far as like, I didn't know how to like analyze a real estate property. And we made an offer on this duplex, and put some earnest money down. And then after the fact, I decided to run it through my CPA, who was a very successful real estate investor. And he's just like, Jeff, like, that I invest in real estate. Like, why wouldn't you ask me first before you made this offer? And I'm like, I don't know, because I got really excited because I thought I got a good deal. And basically he ran the numbers. Like, if the air conditioner goes out, like in the first 3 years, like you're losing money. Like you're paying way too much. Like, this is not a good deal at all. You'll be lucky to break even if you can get out of it. So somehow I was able to get out of it, didn't have to, and the lady gave me back our earnest money. It was only like $500, but nonetheless, she still gave it back. She didn't have to, but she did. And in that whole experience, I just realized, man, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I was really excited. I remember boasting to one of my best friends at the time, like by the end of the year, I'm going to have 12 real estate properties. I still don't own one. That was 11 years ago. And I also, for me too, like I recognized, like I was driving all around our area, like looking at houses, and it was just taking me away from my financial planning business. Like my business wasn't growing, and just had some guilt with that. And that's when I ended up reading this article talking about blogging, and more for financial advisors that want to stand out from other advisors. Is, one way to do that is to start a blog. As I mentioned, I didn't know what a blog was. I had to figure that out. But then I just thought, okay. So basically all I'm doing is sharing my expertise and my experience on what I'm already doing, while, trying to reach new people. And I thought, well, that seems like that's a good idea. I could do that. Like that seemed like a lot easier than me trying to figure out something new. So that's when I began that journey of starting the blog. And really the initial motivation was, or inspiration, or just the ease of it was, I'm getting asked the same questions over and over again from all my clients, whether it is, how do I roll over my 401k? How do I save for my kids' college? How much life insurance do I need? Blah, blah, blah. So I would just answer those questions and put that in an article form. And it was just kind of cool. You've heard that expression, like they wrote, I'm going to butcher it, but he wrote the book on that, or just, mean that person's an expert on that, because I guess maybe they published a book on it. But it was kind of cool that somebody would ask me a question about college savings plans, and I'd say, oh, here, I wrote an article on it, go check it out. And they were just like, oh, wow. Like it was just funny. Like it's almost like I did write the book on it, because I was smart enough and had the experience and expertise enough to be able to write an article that was published on the web. But many people didn't realize like how easy that was at the time, and still is. But nonetheless, it put me in this expert status. And so that's the whole real estate thing led me to a major pivot on starting the blog, and it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, that just, it's not for everyone. And I think it made more sense. I mean, just like what you did, rather than invest all this time into learning something that may not be your forte, you got an avenue to take what you already know and you are an expert in and run with it. Like that seems like the logical step anyway. So I think that's good for everyone to hear. For those of you listening to this, that real estate's not always like, just because people invest in real estate doesn't mean everything investments. It's like everything. There are good investments, there are bad investments. You gotta know what you're doing. So
Yeah, I'm still interested. I've got a friend here, also in the FinCon community, that he bought a property to do Airbnb, which in Nashville, like, just makes a whole lot of sense. And right now, I think it's even cash flowing, even though he only rents it out maybe like half the month, or maybe even less than half the month. But when CMAs are in town, or some big music festival, which there's just always something going on, like he does very well. But it's just like, diversification. So just, it's something that I haven't closed the book on yet, but right now I'm just enjoying what the online business is doing.
yeah, there's a ton of fun opportunities with that. And if you ever got questions, I'd love to talk. But let's stick into some of the other stuff. What are some of your favorite investment strategies or vessels that you like to look into?
Always a big fan of the Roth IRA. Just one of the things that, if anybody can take advantage of it, as long as you ain't making too much money, there is the backdoor Roth IRA that you can take advantage of. Also, just, you talk a lot about real estate, but if you are a not a small business, but small business, self-employed, etc., you can open up a self-directed 401k, and that offers profit sharing. And obviously you got to be at income level for this makes sense. But, when I actually did a video on this not too long ago, but like last year, my wife, so I'm sole owner of the business. My wife is an employee. Hopefully Ira's not watching this. She does help out with the business, but so basically I pay her enough where we were able to put in the 18,500 or 19,000. I don't even know what the limits are. That's embarrassing. But so whatever the 401k limits are, plus profit sharing, So we're just adding bonuses to our salary. So we each were able to put in $55,000 last year into our retirement accounts, so $110,000 each. And that went into a self-directed 401k, which allows us to invest into other things than instead of the traditional stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, all that good stuff. So, if there was some sort of like a real estate investment, like I know another guy in the area that asked me if I wanted to do a hard money loan. Yeah, hard money loan. And I forgot it was like 7 or 8% that he was offering. And so, I mean, these are things that I could set up through the 401k. I do have some real estate notes that are paying me like a 7% dividend that I did back in Illinois where I moved from, but that was all done through the 401k. So anyway, that's just a thing that you can take advantage of. And if you're not even maxing it out like that, we are, even just to put money into that allows you to invest into maybe some real estate deals later on. I mean, that's why this is a dated article, but whenever Mitt Romney was running for the president election, however many years ago, like there was this story that was done about how much he had in his IRAs. And it was some stupid number, like $80 million or something like that. And the reason he was able to do that, because he had self-directed IRAs, and he had, I'm sure, some real estate, but for him, it was a lot of private equity that he was investing into. But that's one way that you do it. And it sounds like, oh, that only the rich people can do that. Like, no, I mean, anybody can set up a self-directed 401k or IRA as long as you are, self-employed and you do it. I mean, that's the requirement. So it's not for the ultra rich.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who invest with with self-directed IRAs. In fact, if you're going to do private lending, it's probably one of the better ways to do it, because you can basically just let that money, you have a fixed interest rate and it just grows and there's no taxes on it. And I've got some buddies who do that very successfully, and they make awesome returns on just lending other investors their money, or maybe they partner up on a deal. Yeah, so that's definitely an option. All right, so we mentioned the Roth. Do you have a preference for the age old like Roth versus traditional?
To me, it's like, if you are, I'll just throw out an age here. I mean, if you're younger than 40, then the Roth is going to make the most sense. If you are over the age of 40 and you're making good money, unless it's like a pure like legacy planning play where you want to pass on tax-free money to your kids. Typically, in your 40s, you're making really good money, and that deduction that you get from the traditional is typically going to work out better. But it just really depends on what your goals and objectives are. But under 40, lean towards the Roth. Over 40, towards the traditional, unless you just want to be a really nice parent and give your kids some tax-free money.
I think that's good advice. Yeah, it definitely just depends on your income now versus retirement. What are your thoughts on like index funds versus people trying to beat the market? I don't necessarily mean day trading, but
yeah,
that's exciting. But
yeah, it's funny. Like, so I have hated, gosh, that's such a harsh word, but I've hated index funds, the bogleheads, and not that like buying a passively managed index fund is a bad investment. Like, I think for anybody that is starting off, it's a great investment. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, like, it's the easiest thing that you can buy that you're going to take advantage of the market. But man, like when I see people that quote Warren Buffett, and whenever he put out his the Berkshire Hathaway annual report several years ago, and there's actually a guy in the FinCon community that used that quote, where, look, Warren Buffett, billionaire, says that you need to buy index funds. That's where he would put his money right now. I mean, great, awesome. But here's the question I asked, like, did Warren Buffett become a billionaire by buying index funds? And like somebody says, well, index funds didn't exist back then. I'm like, yeah, I get it, right? But still, where is Warren Buffett investing his money right now? Like, yes, he's telling you, the average investor, that is not going to take any time or research to invest into a passively managed index fund. But where is he investing his money? So what are you trying to accomplish? If you want to invest for the long term and, 20, 30 years, and then you've got a big chunk of money, sure, index funds. But if you want to actually accelerate your wealth building, then you got to do something more than index funds. That can be a piece of it, but you got to have more, whether that be real estate, whether that be buying individual stocks. And, I think I wish I should have checked before the recording here, but like I have when I have a Roth IRA, can no longer put into it, hashtag rich people problems. But when, I look at the investments that I placed into that, I mean, I think I only have like 5 or 6 stocks, and like Facebook, Visa, and I don't remember what else I own, but nonetheless, like when you look at the return that I've made on those stocks over the last 10 years, I mean, it's like 19, 20%, I believe. I think it might be somewhere in that ballpark. Compare that to index funds. And I know for me, what really kind of sold me on this was having clients. I remember these clients, they were in their, I'm sure they're probably mid 70s now. And they had all these legacy stock positions, just like Disney and GE and, just stocks they've held forever. And when you looked at how much they made on those stocks, as opposed to mutual funds, ETFs, et cetera, I mean, they were averaging like north of 15, closer to 20, 15 to 20% on these stocks than the individual funds. And that was just one client. I mean, there were several clients I had that were like that. But then, we've just been programmed to, stocks are risky, you need to diversify, you need to blah, blah, blah. And like, that is all coming from mutual fund companies trying to sell you, their products. But I mean, buying blue chip, even just dividend paying stocks, like to me, like that is going to make you more over the long term than just buying a passively managed index fund.
Yeah, I definitely like dividend stocks. I like that you said that about the Warren Buffett quote, because I think it was Susie Orman or whatever, who someone asked her once what her portfolio looked like, and I know we can get into her, but she brought, it was like 90% bonds, and people got super pissed because like, oh, well, you talk about all this other stuff. Like, well, once you've won the money game, why would you not put your money somewhere where it's just, you're not going to lose? Like, you don't necessarily, not to say that won the money game and all that, but like Warren Buffett didn't get rich by investing in an index fund, and he probably wouldn't do that now starting out. But once you've got that much money, take the safest route possible and maintain it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. If you go back, I think it was in 2008, whenever the U.S. debt was downgraded, we had the financial crisis going on, and Warren had an article. I think it was either the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. So basically, it says like, I'm buying American. He didn't buy the S&P 500 index fund. He put like all his money into GE stock when it was like $4 a share or $3 a share, and then sold it when I got like to 20. He bought like into Bank of America whenever it went south. Like that's where he made his money. He didn't buy the Vanguard S&P 500 fund. Sorry, I'll stop now.
No, I completely agree, and I like the fact that you're mentioning specific companies, and that's my thought. So I had some terrible success. I use that as a
love it.
Funny word, I guess you could say stock market investor. I'd probably just say gambler as a young Marine. I lost all kinds of money. I mean, I made some money, and then I lost it all, and then I lost more. And then, because I was just investing in ticker symbols. I wasn't investing in companies. And as I've gotten older, I've realized like, well, that's where I messed up. Like if I had done my homework in that same era and invested in Apple or Amazon or Google or Microsoft or any myriad of these companies that were clearly going to be around for a little while, my returns would have been amazing. So I think that's, people get wrapped around ticker symbols and charts and forget that like right now, some of my best investments in the non-real estate world are companies that I just know and trust, and I am very confident that they will be around for a while. So we interrupt this broadcast to bring you a mid-roll ad. Today's mid-roll ad is Robinhood. And if you're not familiar with Robinhood, it is just a really simple app that you can utilize to buy and sell and trade stocks. It's very simple. It took me all of like 5 minutes tops. I mean, it was very, 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 very quick to get started with and to buy my first stock with. In fact, when you sign up, you will actually get a free stock. And there's some valuable stocks out there. I think mine was like $8, but I've heard of guys getting $100, $200, $300 stocks for signing up with Robinhood if you go through a friend. So I just wanted to touch on this only because Jeff and I mention it in this episode, and I'm going to put my link down below. So if you sign up, you'll get a free stock on me, and awesome. And if you don't, great. Cool. We're getting back to the show. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. All right. I know you've done a little bit, I think. I mean, you got the word up behind you, but side hustles. You got any experiences or favorite side hustles? I mean, I guess technically like all the blogging stuff started as a side hustle, but
It was, you know, it initially wasn't a side hustle, but then it became a side hustle. And yeah, let me actually share that journey because, well, prior to the real estate adventure, it was multi-level marketing. It was Juice Plus was one. I was really into healthy living, health and wealth. Then it was, I think it was a Quick Star, which is the division of Amway. I mean, and this is a lot of it inspired by Rich Dad Poor Dad because he does mention multi-level marketing.
I did Amway
Uh, yeah, and
for about a
there,
month. That's how I got a hold of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and
yeah.
it changed my life.
And I will say, man, like there are some good principles that, you know, if you join a good multi-level marketing firm, company, whatever, I mean, just having to go out and sell. I mean, like that. I mean, yeah, it can be a little shady. It's like, hey, I want to invite you to this opportunity. You know, I want to invite you over for dinner. Like, I don't like that aspect, but you know, having to understand what are the features and benefits of this program, of this company, and how that's going to, you know, play out for the person that wants that you're maybe interested. So, I mean, and also just getting you out of your comfort zone. But nonetheless, a lot of money, not a lot of money, but enough wasted, enough time wasted. Then it was real estate. And from there, like, I don't remember anything else I really tried, but the blogging thing was, okay, I'm going to try it out. Bought the domain in June of 2008. And then I think it went live July-ish, August, was publishing 3 articles a week on average. And after 9 months of doing that, I finally got my first client. And so I stopped that because a common definition of insanity, you know, is like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And like here I was basically being insane, publishing 3 articles a week, doing a lot of research. I mean, I'm talking at least 20 hours a week, if not more, just all things blogging. I was writing all my own articles. I'm a horrible writer. Not only what I produce, but also the time it takes to produce a piece of crappy content. It's just horrific. But I did have some terrible success, you know, with that. And then somewhere along the ways, whenever I talked to my buddy Ryan, and he shared how much he was making, and I threw on Google AdSense on my blog. And I need to find out the date. Oh, actually, it's on my desktop. Check it. So February of 2009 is when I got my first paycheck from Google, and it was for $152.91. I'm actually going to do a video on this. Actually, let me just talk about this because this is one of the biggest reasons why people that start a side hustle or the entrepreneurs don't stick it out is because they can't survive this stage. And the stage is the BMW stage. You know, like we're not talking about going out and buying a brand new Beamer or renting a Beamer so that whenever you go to try to solicit people to join your multi-level marketing company, you're like, oh, look at me, I earned this Beamer. The BMW stage is the below minimum wage stage. So are you willing to put in the work, the hustle, the grit to where basically you're making below minimum wage, hoping for a payoff later on? And many people either don't, some people can't do it, you know, because they've got a family to support, they've got bills they got to pay, debt they have to pay off. But, you know, for me, it's like, man, I'm talking 9 months of pouring 20 hours a week into this. So I finally got a paycheck of $152 after 9 months. And the second month paycheck wasn't that much more. I mean, it might've been like $160. But then that 160 became 250. Then it was 500. Then it was 750. And I don't have that check here on my desktop, but somewhere along the way, it was like almost a $5,000 paycheck that I got from Google. And like now we just went from side hustle to like, this is like a real income. I mean, wasn't as much I was making it for my financial planning practice, but still, I mean, you know, almost making $60,000 a year. Like that's nothing to scoff at. So that was my side hustle story.
I like that below minimum wage stage, BMW. I'd never heard it stated that way, but you're absolutely right. That's, you know, I always joke with service members that they have the perfect opportunity to side hustle because say you want to build like what I've been messing around with, you know, slowly or whatever, like I've already got an income. So sure, I'm working for free, but like, it's really not any different than when the boss just says, hey, we need to stay late because someone forgot to change an oil filter. And in the military, you're like, oh, great, and be here all night. Like, we're kind of used to doing extra time for not a whole lot of income sometimes. So the idea of doing it, but for yourself, is not that bad. And my family's already supported, which is nice, the security blanket there. So, but that's a cool way to put it. Cause yeah, it's totally below minimum wage for that first year, if it's even a wage.
And I have to imagine too, even like investing into real estate. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you just kind of like woke up one day and open up the classified and say, hey, I'm going to go buy that property. I'm going to make some money. I'm sure you probably had to do some research, read some books, talk to some people, find some property. And even when you made an offer, I don't know if you flipped it or if it was just like a rental property. It wasn't like you were cash flowing immediately. So there's like a lot. So, that's why I hear, like talking about passive income, like, oh, real estate investing is passive income. Like, yeah, it can be, but like, that's why not everybody goes out and just buys real estate, like there is a learning curve and many people aren't willing to stick it out, or they make a bad deal and it just either wrecks them financially or just wrecks them, emotionally, where they just, oh man, I can't, I failed. I don't want to do it anymore. It's kind of what happened to me a little bit, but I did pivot into something else. But anyway.
No, you're spot on. Yeah, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes money. It is what it is. All right, so looking back, what is one piece of advice that you would give your 18-year-old self? Like, what do you wish you'd known?
That mentorship is a big deal. And I did not have, my father struggled with debt. Both my parents, they divorced when I was young. Both my parents, independent of each other, both filed bankruptcy twice. So like, that's the financial tools that I grew up with. My mom invested a little bit into like annuities and insurance because she had no idea what she was doing. My dad didn't have any investments whatsoever. So I didn't come from a family background that would talk about entrepreneurship and personal development and self-growth and investing in yourself and personal equity funds and all this stuff. So just seeking out, I think of like Robert Kiyosaki, like what a blessing, whether it's made up or not. I know there's been stories where the rich dad wasn't, maybe it was made up. I don't know, whatever. But nonetheless, let's just say that's true. The fact that he had a friend that had a dad that had a different perception, on life, different perspective on life, and could offer him just a different way of thinking, and just recognizing like, man, like you only know what you are surrounded by. Going back to, I think Darren Hardy's quote is, for you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And God, it's so true. Like, it's so true. And that was me growing up. Like I was happy to go to school, get a degree, a good job. And if I'm making $60,000 to $80,000 a year, like that was my goals. Like I was set. And then when you start, I mentioned the advisor that had hired me, the guy was making about $500,000 a year, living in Southern Illinois, where the average salary was like $45,000 a year. And it's just like, wow, like, okay, that's awesome. That's cool. Like, I want to work towards that. And then, I was in Michael Hyatt's inner circle for a year. And, then you see a guy who employs like 40 people and is making, 8 figures work, on a business and just making like $1 million per month. And it's like, oh, wow. Okay. Like all these things are possible. But before, it was just like, I'll never make $1 million. Like how could I ever make $1 million? That just seems impossible. But when you start hanging around people that either have done it or believe that they can and are willing to put themselves out there, take the risk, take the chance, it's just not a matter of like, okay, it's not that I can't do it. It's like, okay, what do I need to do to start making those things happen? And it's all those little steps, it's all the little steps of just reading books and podcasts and listening to podcasts like this, or just talking to people that have achieved that success and just surrounding yourself with people that think differently.
I agree completely. Yeah, mentorship is huge. And I would like to say, I've never said this recorded before, but people get so bent up about whether or not Rich Dad Poor Dad is true. And it's hilarious to me because my theory on it is, if he made that story up from scratch, I would almost give him more credit, because that is like the perfect parable to like, it has changed so many people's life. And for someone, especially a Marine, right? Speaking as a Marine and knowing how well thought we are, for someone to be able to articulate those lessons so well through a parable, whether it's true or false. If it's false, like, good on him. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope he owns it someday if that's the case, but that's so impressive to me that he just broke it down that simple, because finance is not like, those subjects are not usually very stomachable, and he found a way to make it enjoyable. That's why it's been so successful. So
I see this a lot on YouTube commenters, and it's all over the web, but anytime like we talk about Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki, anybody basically that has achieved some success and now they're selling some sort of program, some sort of coaching courses, etc. And it is like, oh, the gurus, that's how they're making their millions and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, good for them, right? I mean, good for them, because what it has done, it's inspired me to the fact, like, yeah, I believe that I can do it because they have done it. Like, I'm grateful for that. And I hope the programs do help people, but just the fact that they have these programs and are sharing some of that insight, for free on their different platforms, like Brandon Burchard, for example. Like, I'm grateful for that, because it's given me that inspiration, motivation. Because it's pretty easy to sit back and point fingers and say, oh, look at them, that's how they made their million. But it's also a different perspective and mindset for those that are like, oh, they did that, I want to do that too. What do I need to do right now? And that's either going to be a finger pointer or you're going to take action.
yeah, absolutely. All right. What is one resource, book, course, website, whatever, that you would recommend for anyone getting started in finance or real estate or business? Or
Going back to the basics, I think, I do love Dave Ramsey, Total Money Makeover. I think for anybody that's still like trying to get a handle on their finances, that's a great book to start. I'm actually looking over my shoulder, like the ones I would recommend. Automatic Millionaire by David Bach, I think, is another good book. More higher level. I really love Brandon Burchard, Millionaire Messenger, as far as anybody's like building an online platform and just showing you the potential on things that you can create. Kind of gives you like this ladder step system, where you start here and then you add this and then you add this and add this. We've already talked about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Also, talking about side hustles. Actually, he does have a book called Side Hustle, but Chris Guillebeau has, I don't know if it's called The Side Hustle, but his first book not his first book, but the first book that really I liked of his was The $100 Startup, and just gave a lot of, he's really good at giving very specific examples of people that have started a business with little to no money, that has either it's just a side hustle, where that's all it is, or it becomes like their full-time thing. And that's really his story or mantra, is that your side hustle doesn't have to become your main hustle, but if you can start something on the side that makes a couple $1,000 a month to supplement what you're already doing, like that's not a bad thing either. I think the story I remember was the guy that was delivering mattresses by strapping it to his back and like riding his bicycle through town. Like, I don't remember the specifics, but there's just that mental picture of a dude got a mattress strapped to his back on a bicycle. That was a side hustle that I think ended up becoming like a main hustle.
That's funny. Hopefully not on a bicycle, but I mean, hey, whatever works.
Yeah.
Talk about bootstrapping. Awesome. All right. So where can people get a hold of you, Jeff?
Predominantly hang out on Twitter at JJeffRose, 2 J's. I know that's confusing. I do not have a stuttering problem. But then also on YouTube, Wealth Hacker Labs, or you just search Jeff Rose, you can find me. And then the blog, Good Financial Sense, CENTS.com, is also a good resource.
Yeah, and definitely go check out his YouTube channel. It is, I think I already said it on here, but if not, it's the only channel that my wife really enjoys when I watch in the bedroom, as far as finance. So it's one of my favorites. It's I think her only that gets a thumbs up. So it's definitely a good channel. Before we wrap this up, is there any parting advice, anything we missed, big ideas that you'd like to hit on?
Yeah, I think the one thing I didn't really touch on today was just the idea of starting small. And for those that have never invested before and you keep thinking about it, keep talking about it, just do it. And I mean, there are so many different online investment accounts nowadays that you can open up. And not that I have one favorite in mind, but like Robinhood is one that's been very popular over the past couple of years. And just curious, like how easy it was. I remember I think we were flying, my wife and I were flying on vacation somewhere, and I was boarding the plane. So I'd given, my boarding pass on boarding a plane. I had downloaded the app. uploaded all my information. The only thing left to do was sync up my bank account. And that was all done before the plane took off. And there was no delay, it was everybody seated and we were getting ready to lift off. And I'm like, so I could have started invested literally at the time it took me to board a plane and put my seatbelt on. And for anybody that's still on the sidelines saying themselves like, oh, I don't know what to do yet, I don't know how to do it, open up any investment account, put in $25 and start, because that's where you're going to learn how it all works. And that's going to open up the doors, not just to investing, but into other side hustles, other investment opportunities. But you learn so much more by doing than actual just reading or talking about it.
Yeah, that's huge. Taking action is the piece where it all comes together. Awesome. And for those of you who want to, I'll throw a link down below for Robinhood. It's a fun app for sure. It's super simple. Although I lost money yesterday, so yeah. I only check that thing like once a month because if I try to keep my emotions out of my real estate or my stocks, but because I'm a terrible emotional seller and buyer when it comes to the stock market, as I've proven time and time again. I do not trust myself. So.
It's okay.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. This was a blast. I know my listeners got a ton of value from this, and I know they will from your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Thank you for listening to another episode about my journey from military to millionaire. If you liked it, be sure to visit FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com/podcast to subscribe to future podcasts. While you're there, we'd love for you to rate the show, give us a review on iTunes. Now get out there and take action.